This is my Chapter 9 lesson on how has the evolution of pilot training made safer pilots. I like to think of the evolution like a target. On the outside, you think of learning how to fly the aircraft, what is an aircraft, all kind of just the basics. And then you go in towards this second layer. And that's maybe procedures, we're developing checklists, we're learning about emergencies and how to handle them. And then if we go in on another level, we have more advanced systems like avionics, and so that has more advanced training. And then if you go in further, maybe it's like human factors and crew resource management, and it just keeps getting further, and we keep developing new training until we zero in on the bullseye because the goal is to make aviation safer. So that's my little analogy. Okay, these are some important quotes that I found in the textbook that I wanted to share. Such errors occur when the operator had the correct intention, i.e. they understood what to do, but unintentionally or accidentally made the wrong action, slip, or forgot an aspect or a step in the task lapse. I thought this quote was important because it goes on later and explains how these mistakes or slips or lapses are usually caused by more novice pilots, and it's due to inexperience. They just haven't had time, like practice and experience and stuff. So I thought that was important. And then the next quote is, experienced pilots can make decisions faster with more proficiency than a less experienced pilot when a new situations are encountered because of the well-developed mental models. If a pilot can recognize similar patterns, less emphasis is needed on the single bits of information, whereas the pilot can process greater amounts of information, thereby freeing up the cognitive load. Furthermore, an expert is more likely to filter out irrelevant information than their less experienced counterparts. A reduction cognitive load allows for more information to be processed. The ability to process more information can improve situational awareness, which is consequently promotes greater ability for decision making. Also from the textbook. I found this really important because it kind of reminded me that it's not that you shouldn't like compare yourself. This is kind of like maybe I'm just out there. That you shouldn't really compare your flying abilities to others, and it really just highlights that maybe like the experienced pilot can do more than the inexperienced pilot, but it doesn't make the inexperienced pilot a bad pilot. They're just a little more experienced, so they don't have that skill set like filtering out unimportant information. And it just like, I thought of it more as like a good reminder that people's pilot journeys or pilot training is different, and that you shouldn't compare yourself to like your experienced relative who's maybe a pilot or your flight instructor, and you shouldn't beat yourself down that maybe you can't do the maneuver as perfectly as they can, but that doesn't mean like you're an unsafe or bad pilot. That just means you need to practice, and that should like be motivation to get better and be a safer pilot. Maybe I'm just like on something. Yeah. Okay. Automation is the use of technology to do tasks with minimal human input. Aircraft automation can help control the aircraft by maintaining altitudes or holding airspeeds or just following the flight path. Really useful, pilots love them. It reduces the pilot workload. So instead of hand flying, the pilot can monitor its systems, talk to air traffic control, or focus on important flight decisions. It also monitors the aircraft systems like fuel, the engine, stuff like that, electronics, and alerts the pilots for like system errors or like whatever. The important thing is that pilots don't feel automation complacency. Like that's the danger of automation, because then it like lessens their skills. They're not really that focused, or they don't feel like it's that important, that they kind of brush up and make sure they know how to do these things. So they're like, oh, the aircraft can just do it. It's fine. So that's the danger. It's important not to get in that mindset. Okay, simulator training. So this covers like anything from like severe weather, unusual attitudes. It could be system failures, engine fires, or like total loss of hydraulics, or emergency maneuvers like aborting a takeoff, single engine landings, or missing approaches or missed approaches. So the pictures down here of just like what a simulator looks like on the outside and inside. So they look just like the aircraft that they would be flying, but it's a lot cheaper to fly one of these than actually taking like a Boeing 737 out for a spin. Yeah, and they also, out of simulator training, we're kind of in tangent with simulator, like physical and simulator training, are like hostile environment training. Think of like you're a first officer and your captain is kind of doing their own thing, not really listening to air traffic control. Maybe they're 200 feet below like the designated altitude. For this situation, you would probably use the 2 challenge rule, where you ask the captain twice to get on altitude, and maybe he doesn't listen after the second time. Then it gives you the right to take over controls and do the thing you have to do. Or speaking up if the captain's not really listening to you. Just kind of like stuff like that. You know, you might be in a more like, have like more tension or hostility in the cockpit. Or stressful environments too. It's important, I think, to have really stressful training, like train for like the really stressful situations like that I've listed earlier. And so you know how you react personally to these environments, and to make them as realistic as possible. Like you want to feel the full like emotions. So you know what it's going to feel like in the future if this happens and stuff. So you're prepared, you know how to handle your stress, you know how to act level-headed, you know how you react to the stress, and just important things like that. Okay. Crew Resource Management, or CRM, and Human Factors Training. So CRM is focusing on how flight crews communicate, make decisions, and work together. This training teaches pilots how to communicate clearly, share information, coordinate tasks, make group decisions, and just kind of like manage high stress situations and workloads as a team. And then Human Factors Training focuses on how human limitations affect pilot performance and covers topics like stress, fatigue, and situational awareness. I like to think of it as human factors is the individual, how you affect the flight, while crew resource management focuses on how the team affects the flight. And they're both very important to learn about and understand. Okay, my case study was United Airlines Flight 173 on December 28, 1978. United Airlines Flight 173 was approaching Portland, Oregon, when the crew got distracted by an indication that the right main landing gear might not be fully locked into place. The crew decided to enter a holding pattern to try to fix the problem. After some time, the first officer and flight engineer noticed that their fuel was low, but they did not clearly communicate this problem to the captain because he was still focused on the landing gear issue. Then the engines flamed out due to fuel exhaustion, and the aircraft started to descend rapidly. Then they crashed, and 10 out of the 181 passengers died that day. And this was an accident. The cause they found was human factors. It wasn't like a system problem. It was a human factors accident. And then after this, airlines started to implement CRM training. That started like the 1980s. So after this accident, airlines really understood that, we need to train our pilots to work together, because they noticed the big factors leading up to that was they weren't communicating. The first officer and the flight engineer weren't really telling the captain what was wrong, and the captain wasn't really listening to them. So they're like, we have a big communication problem. And then they started training their crew on how to work together, how to communicate clearly, and they also put emphasis on first officers or flight engineers, maybe lower level pilots, being assertive with their captains. And kind of just breaking that stigmatism that's kind of like, or whatever, the captain's like fully in charge. Like, you don't want to like go against the captain. Like, the captain's always right, you know? Going against that, breaking that culture, and then it's still implemented today, which that's good because we learned from this accident. And that is my lesson. Thank you for listening.